Did you miss me? I've been gone for a little while. The last video I created was back in, I think, July. And I was having a lot of fun building out InterviewAt and helping people through their time of need in COVID interview for new jobs. What I learned about this process, however, was that I didn't know what I was doing with regard to videography, lighting, sound, video workflows, and how to properly think through an editing process. And then ultimately, what was it that I was trying to accomplish or do, not just for my customers, but also potential customers via YouTube. And so that's actually a pretty good parable there for all the product managers out there or anybody looking to start a business is what did I do right, what did I do wrong on this path, and how's it going to improve on a go-forward basis for me. And in order to paint a fun picture, I wanted to play a video which demonstrates just how far I came in a very short period of time. Because again, I started doing these interviews, I think back in end of March, early April of 2020. And the last one I did was July, but I've obviously continued to do them. So what I'm going to show here is the very first video, very first mock interview I did with in 15-second chunks progression along the way to kind of demonstrate how much you can learn about new topics about which you knew nothing in a very short period of time, make rapid and massive progress towards a goal, which then allows you to rethink what you're doing so you can do it even better. So let me cut to that and then we'll come out. I don't, and I'm working on it.
Computer, perfect. Okay, we're recording. So I think this is my first one of these. So it's gonna be a bit rough and bumpy just in terms of like flow. So I appreciate you bearing with me on this. So I think the way
classes, there we go. Now adjusted.
The Zoom classes, don't even get me started. Oh my goodness.
Oh, who would have thought? Yeah.
Yeah, we were, this weekend has been I live in Boulder Valley here in Colorado. And we are rolling, sweet, okay. Here we go. All right. Can you give me an example of a time when you've been able to see around the corner to meet a customer need or delight a customer record and red lights on? Cool. All right. So what we're doing here is I'm gonna read through my assessment that would have been read. So many things to talk about. Not the least of which is the disco ball in the background. Look, I get it. I got a lot of flack over the color. That was me doing a follow-up session with someone who I knew really, really well, and I was testing out different color lights just to kind of see what it was going to look like. And obviously I went for a bit, I leaned too hard into the Twitch flavor, Twitch streaming, and not enough into the professional flavor. I thought it looked fine, but got a lot of flack from my friends. But there's a lot of things to take away from that video that is relevant for anyone who's going to go start a business, anyone who's going to start building products to target your customers, etc., and understand their needs, but also things to think about for people who are using video in their day-to-day existence now, especially with the vaccine on the way. Great, but I think remote work is going to kind of continue to be here for a while. Certainly, we've bridged a lot of gaps in people's willingness to conduct business remotely or completely remotely with video chat. And I think there's a lot of very valuable things to be learned from just that progression of videos. One, line of sight is important, and learning to talk to the camera and looking at the lens, critically important, unbelievably important. And as you notice in the very first of those videos, I had my laptop camera, which is always pointed up. You can't really change that. So I made adjustments to give myself a camera to use here that is a much higher def camera, because most laptops ship with 720p cameras. Some of them have 1080p, but most of them are 720p. They don't have great lenses for light capture. They don't deal with light changes very well, and they're just not great sensors, which is fine. It's a laptop. It's not really what it's there for. But if you have the means or ability to add an extra camera setup or even just an external webcam on my desktop machine over there, I just have a normal 1080p USB plug-in. And what I use for my studio here, I'm just using GoPros, right? So I don't have the fancy Canon videos or anything like that. I just had GoPros. I do a lot of snowboarding and other stuff where I like to film, and the phrase you hear is, hey, check this out, and then something disastrous happens, but that's what GoPros are for. And so I have the GoPros set up here on some gooseneck clamps that allow me to look straight into the camera and have that conversation and create that connection. Because what happens a lot of times, and I've seen people do, is either they're looking where the person is with whom they're talking, not where the lens is. And so it creates this very weird disassociation of who are you talking to. Or they've got the sight lines wrong, where they're looking down or they're looking up, and it just doesn't create that connection. So that was actually the problem in the first two of those video clips. Two, lighting. I've done a video on this before, at least a segment of a video on lighting, but as you can see, lighting makes a huge difference, right? It makes the scene pop, but it also frames me much better. And framing is another part of this, right? So in the first two of those, one obviously on my laptop, it's a terrible video. You're looking at my face, and there's nothing much you can do about it. But that second video was how I conducted the mock interviews for a while, and it was against that back wall because I didn't really understand that you want the separation from the environment behind you to create that depth of field. And with that separation, you now have the ability to use lighting to frame and paint the face, as well as I have another light back there, which you can kind of sort of see, but it's creating this light effect. Let me see if you can see it on my hand, right? So it's on the back of my head, so that further creates separation from me and the environment, which just creates a much better scene to present. Now, in terms of that scening, you see that in that second, and even the first one's actually pointed towards the front door over there, which was ridiculous. But the second video was flat against this wall with nothing against it. Now I've got some shelves, I've got some Microsoft patent awards, I got some Amazon patent awards, got some wedding photos over here, and over there I've got the Microsoft Ship Award and a Gold Star Achievement Award, and even a Windows Phone foamy guy that the eagle-eyed Windows Phone people were observed, and then some stuff hanging in the background, and of course the fake plant that my wife said I needed to have. But the couch in the background, some lights, it creates for a better scene and creates a more intimate and interesting environment, as well as the practical lights behind the sofa. So all of these things were things I knew nothing about 6 months ago. But I dedicated myself to the craft of making higher quality videos so I could deliver a better product for my customers, so that when they got their mock interview videos, they got this quality of video and not that up my nose lens shot that we had from video number one, which is embarrassing but necessary. So I didn't understand any of those things. I also didn't understand how to operate a camera. I thought I could just turn on a GoPro, point it at me, and I would get those awesome, sweet videos that you see on all the commercials. And it turns out, no, none of that is true. And you actually have to understand what you're doing. And that involves understanding ISOs and apertures, which you don't really have f-stops on the GoPro, but you can use little tricks in terms of the light and the ISO stops and the frame and understanding the frame rate, the shutter rate. A bunch of these things you can learn. All of this I learned on YouTube. It's an amazing resource. You can learn everything you possibly want on YouTube, and the things you can't learn or can't quite figure out, you will eventually figure out a way to figure that out, and I'll get to that in a minute. So understanding how to use my GoPros better allowed me to use two different GoPros, set them up the same way. So I have the A shot, I have a B shot, so now actually I have the ability to kind of talk and do cutaways and talk over here. Again, more interesting stuff over here, some cool pictures, patent award, Wall Street Journal article I was in, but it, again, creates that cool background, and then I can cut back to the A shot. And now I've got just two cameras on gooseneck clamps, super simple setup, clamped to my desk right here, computer in front of me on which I'm operating. Sound. The microphone on your computer is terrible. It's just terrible. And I didn't really appreciate and understand that until a good friend of mine, Andrew Warner, he's not a good friend, he's an acquaintance that I've met several times, but he was nice enough to send a Yeti microphone to my kids, because I asked him about how to get, what microphone he was using for his interviews on Mixergy, and he, as a gift, he's a nice guy, sent it to my kids because my daughter records music and my son is hopefully a budding Twitch streamer, and he's building up his channel. But we got a Yeti microphone, a Yeti Blue microphone, Blue Yeti microphone, and it's fantastic. It's amazing. My kids love it. And so I said, okay, well, I'm gonna go out and get myself a Yeti Nano, which is what I use here. And the audio is great. I tried a lav mic and it was fine, but it had a battery and it had a plug and it had all. It's just too hard. Honestly, it was just too many things for me to keep track of. Did I leave it on? Did I replace the battery? It was just too many things. This thing just plugs right into the computer via USB. I've got a direct 3.5 millimeter right into the GoPro, so I don't have any of the weird audio video delay stuff, and it just works. And that's awesome. And so all of that setup that I've got here, kind of GoPros laying around, new microphone I had to pay for, but everything kind of, was cheap. I did splurge a little bit on the lights, but that came from Prime Video. So, you can go find them. These practical lights back there, those are Hue lights. Those are a little bit more spendy, but I felt like having fun with them because I wanted to be able to control my lights from my phone, and that's the big nerd that I am. But all of this setup would not be possible without what I believe is the coolest piece of kit that I've come across in the last good handful of years, which is the A10 Mini Pro ISO. I splurged for the ISO version because it allows me to record each of the cameras independently and each of the audio tracks independently. But what the A10 Mini does is it takes HDMI in and acts as a video switching board and outputs to the screen. It's a magic box, and it can do keyframes to allow me to do picture-in-picture, so I can do this, or I can do the logo on the bottom right, or I can do screen, but it's an amazing little box that I push buttons and things happen and I don't have to think about it, and it's dirt cheap, and I thought that stuff would cost a fortune, and it turns out it used to until they put out this device, and it's amazing, and it's just the greatest piece of kit that I've had my hands on, and I'm so excited to play with it, and I still don't even understand half of what it can do, but it does have a macro programming language, which is how I was able to do all the switching stuff. I've kind of programmed those in. It's a terrible editor, and that's a project that I might actually go take on, is to build a macro editor for the A10, because it's just, editing macros is just a nightmare on that thing. You gotta go muck around in XML after it's created. You can't actually edit it anyways. So very cool piece of kit that if you're doing any kind of YouTube videos or Twitch streaming or anything, it's actually awesome. It's like a hardware version of OBS, but less finicky, and it's less fiddly. It just works. And it's awesome. So that costs a little bit of money, but all of this was doable with fairly inexpensively, and it really upped my game and what I was doing for my customers, and delivering to them a much higher quality product for what they were getting for the mock interview as well as the follow-up interviews. But it also is going to allow me to then start delivering better YouTube videos to everyone here. So higher quality interactions here where the video is great. I can cut in and out and do analysis of real-time playback of the videos, which is the intent that I'm going to do. The feedback I got universally was the videos were great, and that's awesome, but people didn't want to sit through the whole interview to get to the analysis. And so the way I've got this all set up now is I can actually cut in between playback of the mock interview clips and provide analysis, and then go back to watching the clip, and we can kind of do it in real time. And I can do all of that in one take. I don't need to go to an editor. I don't need to send it off to the guy I found on Fiverr. I don't need to wait for that to get done. I don't have to do the re-editing and all this stuff. I can do it all from this laptop with the A10 Mini, push some buttons, and out it goes, and dumps to hard disk, and I'm done, which is quite frankly amazing. And given that I do all of these interviews for free, and I only have so many hours in a week to commit to InterviewAt because it's not my primary business, it has made my life so much better that I took a step back from what I was doing, analyzed what I was trying to do and for whom, what my customers needed, what I needed, and how I was going to ultimately deliver the end kind of products that I wanted to deliver to the marketplace, and how to make that easier for me and make the product better for them. And so I failed as a product manager in not thinking these things all the way through the logical conclusion when I started, because at the front end of this, I really didn't have a business in mind. It was more, COVID hit and people were losing their jobs and they needed to do interviews. And so I started doing interviews. Great. So everybody benefits. But as I realized I had a thing that was of value, I now have this massive library of mock interviews that I can use for YouTube clips, online courses, etc., to teach people how to interview better or how to be interviewed better. I have this massive data asset, which is great. It's awesome. Met a lot of great people, helped a lot of people, awesome. People getting placed and hired at Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Google. It's been great, and other companies. All of that is great. Still only have a limited number of hours I can commit to this week. So having all of this hardware set up to make it easy to create high quality stuff in a short period of time in one take is a huge win. And I guess the biggest thing for me, and what I continue to be surprised at, is how relatively inexpensive this is and how easy this is now. It's shocking. I mean, if I had told my 12, 13-year-old self that I would be able to basically be a one-man broadcast studio in my office at the push of a button and get HD quality with the video cuts and the picture-in-picture and the wipes and the sweeps, I wouldn't have believed it. It's amazing what you can do. So when you commit to your craft and you commit to being a professional and you understand your limitations, but you realize that you can get to the end, which is, I want to learn a bunch of things. YouTube's resources amazing. Your customers will tell you what they want. And if you're committed to the craft, you will build a better thing. So this is the start of the next round of InterviewAt as a channel, where the videos that will follow from here will be a little, hopefully more dynamic, more interactive in terms of the back and forth between what's happening in the interview, what was going through my mind as the interviewer, the real-time analysis of what I was thinking, why I asked follow-up questions, or the types of follow-up questions you might get asked, as well as kind of playing the video out and hearing how it went. So my hope is to get back to doing one of those a week, as well as maintaining office hours to do other fun things related to the channel. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Hopefully this was of value, gives a little insight as to what I've been doing for the last handful of months, and hopefully it was worth the wait, and everybody's happy about it. So I'm looking forward to continuing on this journey and continuing to help people get their dream job with InterviewAt.